Masterclass. IT tools nobody ever wants to explain to you with Darren White.
IT tools no one ever wants to explain to you. So really quick about me, I'm a senior systems engineer for Apex Technology Management. I've been in IT since around 1997. I worked at an ISP as a sysadmin, and my MSP experience dates back to about 2005. I love scripts and automation. It says I prefer when you never know I'm there. I don't like having to remote into a system and take over and interrupt. You know, when someone's like, hey, this is broken, I'm like, try now. And they're like, hey, it's fixed. That's my ideal. I'm MSP Geek Discord and Slack, Darren White 99. Every presentation I saw had an AI image. I did not, and so I got an AI image. Okay, so first of all, the agenda hit on a few essential commands. These are things that level 1 to level 3. We use them all the time, but hopefully you'll appreciate some little suggestions. Talk about some SysInternals tools. Do some example with browser DevTools. Not going to get into Wireshark at all, and then we're going to run through some favorite tools. So the essential commands part. This is the part where it's great to take pictures or whatever. Just commit this to memory because this is ultimately you should put this in muscle memory, right? And what I'm saying is these are the things that when I'm working with technicians, I see them run a traceroute, I see them run a ping, I see them do these different things. I'm like, stop, run it this way, do this. It's much better. So what that traceroute is doing, it stops the reverse DNS lookups, which cause delay. It changes the hop count 20 instead of 30 unless you find that you have an extremely long path. You don't need to assume it's going to be 30. I know you've seen those trace routes that go on and on forever, right? If you run an RMM command to where you run a trace route and it does not return the results till it's back, you ever sit there for 4 minutes waiting for that trace route to come back and see what's going on? How about a trace route that's done in under 30 seconds every time? Okay? So set the hop count, set the wait interval. Unless you've got a satellite link or maybe you're investigating problem, super congested Wi-Fi, latencies are going to be really low. Don't wait 1,000 milliseconds per timeout. Cut it down. If it didn't reach it in 300, it's probably not going to reach it. You always can adjust, right? If you do it and you suspect that, if your first hop is 280 milliseconds and then you get timeouts, okay, maybe you need to raise it, but other than that, start low and see what you get. The netsh int IP show DNS. I can't tell you how many times I've typed that. Just much better than ipconfig/all when you're looking for DNS information. When you want to know what your DNS server is, when you want to know how it's configured, it gives you that information. Very concise, better than ipconfig/all. So it's short. If you want to be a masochist and type that, you can, but netsh int IP show DNS. Not that hard. Clip.exe, anything that you pipe to it it just goes into the clipboard, so you don't have to redirect to temp files. Just super useful. How many times you ran something and the back scroll doesn't capture it all, right? You scroll and you miss it, and you're like, okay, so you adjust the back scroll or you redirect to a temp file, just pipe it to clip. So these tricks only work in cmd.exe. So if you're a PowerShell fan, sorry, it's great, but it can't do these. So use dir with the /s/a/b. That enumerates subdirectories, all files, hidden, system, whatever. And the b bare format just shows you the file name, because when I'm looking for a file, maybe I want to know the size of it and this and that. Most of the time I'm just looking for where the file is. How many times have you jumped on a server that somebody's like, oh, I left an installer, and you're like, okay, where? Like in ctemp, in some download folder, where's it at? You know what it's called, but you don't necessarily know where it is. You can do dir/c or c:\/ asterisk, and then part of the file name asterisk. It's like 10 times faster than doing get child item in PowerShell. Doing a test on my machine, it was like under 30 seconds just to scan my drive, looking for a matching file. And actually, that 30 seconds was enumerating every file. That was just c:\**. PowerShell was over 220 seconds. So, huge difference. And then when I actually scoped it to a specific file mask, I think it was done in like 7 seconds after cache was warmed up. And then using start. So instead of just running a command like ping, start does a nice thing. It launches it in a separate window, and the first parameter to start there, that is a window title. So let me show you what we can do with that. Also, the ping-a is just a fun thing to get in the habit of. It does a reverse DNS lookup. So when you do ping-a and an IP, it's just that little bonus of it tells you the name of the thing that you're trying to do. I've known people that when I've asked them to do a reverse DNS lookup, they do ping-a. They don't even know about NS lookup or whatever to do reverse DNS, but it works. So let's jump into a quick demo. So if we do boop, boop, boop. See if today it wants to cooperate. I gave up yesterday because, like I said, it's about 30 seconds, but 30 seconds feels like an eternity, so I let it run just a little bit, give up. Let me just see if it does it. Oh, I opened it up a little, so found a few extra files. I'm going to go ahead and kill it because you guys believe me, right? And then if we show the difference with clip.exe, actually, I'm going to get rid of the subdirectory walk just because I want it to return quickly. And it put that in the clipboard. Why don't we make it a little more interesting? Boom. Fun tip that I like about Notepad, Control-G lets you jump to a file number, to a line number. It's just a fun way of knowing how many lines are in a file. You ever open something in Notepad or paste? I just almost impulsively do that anytime I paste. I want to know how many lines I just pasted, so Control-G will show you that. Because by default, it tells you your current line number. So if you're at the end, here we go, it's how many lines you have. netsh int IP show DNS. So if we compare that to ipconfig all gives us a lot of great information, right? It does tell me my DNS server. Can anyone tell me, is that DNS statically or dynamically assigned? It does, and so you might know it's statically assigned, but you actually can tell that with the netsh NIP. It actually tells you that that is a statically assigned versus, say, this interface where the DNS is being set through DHCP. So that's one of the big reasons why I say use it over ipconfig/all. Traceroute. So we'll do an example traceroute. Let's see, we do node reverse 20, wait 300, 888. And it just starts chugging through. I actually happen to know that this traceroute is pretty well behaved. It really would work about the same way even if I ran it regularly, because it goes to a point, it ends, there's no drops. But you don't know that, right? Until you run the traceroute, you don't know if there's going to be a lot of timeouts. So just throw those parameters on there and you know. And then the ping-a, there's our little lookup. It resolves to dns.google. And then start. So if I do, so a lot of times when I'm investigating a network issue, right, I will start a ping to my next hop gateway. I'll start a ping to the ISP's gateway, and I'll start a ping to the destination that I'm trying to actually reach. So I get all these pings going, and I want to see like where latency and loss and stuff's happening. So if we do start local gateway, let's get our ping going for that. I can now resize this. If I can get to the bottom. Not going to resize them all, but so now I've got this ping going, and I'm just going to skip the middle. You believe me. So instead of calling this the local gateway, I'm going to call this the final target. Because inevitably, when you get a lot of pings going, you just get these long lists of IPs, right? Even if you pinged by name, it's still pinging the IP, so you just get a list of IPs. Which IP is which, right? Especially when you're doing multiple pings, multiple hops along the way, it's easy to lose track of which one is which is why that window title is such a bonus. Did you say, well, let's get that on the record. I heard the question, but I don't see it there.
Or anything like that? Or monitoring anything?
So the question was, do I ever use tools like ping info view? I'm actually not familiar with that tool, but so I'm in a weird position here. I'm showing you some stuff that are with built-in tools, right? There's certainly better tools for all these things. These are the things that you can jump onto any server, any workstation or whatever, at least for these quick commands, and they're gonna work. Like the example of using dir to find a file. Everything is a great way to search for files, as long as you've already got it installed and as long as it's already indexed the drive and all that, right? But when you jump on a server in Backstage or something for the first time, dir works, right? So bring that back up later. Hopefully at the end we'll have some Q&A because I love when people can share what their favorite tools are. So if there's a better ping diagnostic trace route, I'd love to hear that. No, I don't, but let's bring it up in a minute. Or, let's see, and actually, how much time do I have? 1:30 to 2:50, I have 30 minutes, all right, gotta get moving. Is that right? 2:45, thank you. I was like, I am way behind if I only have 30 minutes left. Okay. So SysInternals, you're probably familiar with it. Mark Russinovich, a suite of tools, a lot of really cool things. Go to sysinternals.com. It redirects you to Microsoft's website because they bought SysInternals. There's documentation on all the tools, but live.sysinternals.com is all you really need to know because that gives you a list of all the files. So if you just go to live.sysinternals.com, you can download any file. If you're using a tool like Screen Connect that allows you to have a technician toolkit, it's great to have the SysInternals suite there, but if you're on a new machine and you need to quickly get one of the next tools we're going to talk about, live.sysinternals.com is all you need to know. So first thing, let's talk a little bit about strings. So strings' purpose is to search through binaries for string patterns. So this is often used like for kind of malware analysis, digging into what's embedded in there. But I find its use most often for working on installers. Somebody provides an installer, they say, can you install this on 30 computers or whatever. And I don't want to go to 30 computers. I want to script an installation, so I've got to figure out how to do a silent install. Sometimes they provide documentation, but that's the exception, right? So you got to figure out how to make this thing silent. So when you run strings by default, it looks for any string that is at least 3 characters. Well, 3 characters can be ZZZ or something, right? Start by increasing the string count. That's going to cut down on, instead of 20, 30, 40,000 matches, like maybe a few thousand or a few hundred. And then that little find string command on there is, don't expect you to remember that. It's great if you already do, but that's a great one for documenting. It is doing a regular expression search for the letters A, E, I, O, U, or Y, which are letters that occur in words, right? Not just strings of letters, but words. So if I'm looking through something for words, I'm going to be looking for something that's got a vowel in it. Technically, curly brace, curly brace, curly brace is a string, has no letters in it. That is, strings will return that, but that's not something we're interested in. So that find string will cut down on what we get. So let's take a look. Let's kill these pings. And so if we run strings and 10, first use case is we're going to take a look at the WizTree setup file. We're going to see if we can learn something about it. We'll look for some install parameters. And just show you what it's going to output. So it dumps all that, but let's put it in our clipboard so that we can scroll around and look at it. Got 511 lines. That's not too bad. We can just kind of skim through that and see what we get. So actually, especially when it's many hundred lines, if I'm looking for something silent, I'll do like quiet. Oops. Oh, you found silent. Hey, look at that. So in this case, this very carefully chosen example, it actually has support for like the /h help. So this is showing you what would be dumped out if I'd asked, if I did /? Or /help, it would dump out this help, showing me some command line parameters. So we can see, in fact, that they do have a silent installer. Let's see if we can apply this to Wireshark's installer. (2,000 rows. A lot of nonsense. So let's get to the top. Silent. No. Quiet. No. Install. Got some hits. And stop right there because I see something I recognize. Null soft install system. If you've worked with a lot of installers, you know that there are a few common packager types: 7-zip, self-extracting, active setup, NSIS, null soft installer system. So because I now know that this package is a null soft installer, spoiler, you search the rest of the file, you're not going to find any information on command line parameters. Oh, Control A, not Control S. We can see that it supports the /s, and that is an uppercase S. So let's test that out. So first of all, I'm going to try running the Wireshark installer and see if I can get it to give me anything useful. I can't. I asked for that /?, it didn't tell me anything. Let's try /help. It's just going to the install, right? It's not actually kicking off. But, yeah, I've got Process Explorer running, good. That'll be relevant in a minute. Actually, I'm going to pivot for 1 second. Because I want Procmon to tell me what's going on while we're doing this. We'll use it in a minute. All right, elevation and, oh, that's a fail on me. You heard me say it had to be an uppercase S, right? Okay, so I did that. It seems like it's silent, right? It went back to the command line, but we don't know what's going on with it. So if we Jump over to Process Explorer. We can take a look here, Wireshark. We can see that the Wireshark process is running. So we have accomplished something. We think it's going to silently install. So I am going to call that the end of the strings demo. So jumping into Process Explorer now, because we've already touched on it. So when you launch Process Explorer, I think I may have already violated this, you should go to File and Show Details for all processes. So Process Explorer will show you all processes, but when you mouse over it, it's gone now. If it's a privileged process, it's just going to give you this. It's not going to give you the full debug. So just say Show Details for all processes. It elevates it, and now we can see it. And while that's relaunching, I'm going to stop my process monitor capture just so it doesn't go forever. Get back to it in a minute. I promise it's going to relaunch. So in the default columns, they don't include the tree use column. So normally you have a column that's showing the amount of use for the amount of CPU use for a process. Is it? Hiding in my tray, or is it just not launched? Nope, there it is. Okay. I was waiting forever for it to show up. All right, so there's the CPU column, but one of the columns that is not enabled by default, but is a fun one, is tree CPU use. And so that's going to appear on the far right by default. We take that, bring it over. So then if we look at a process that has a tree, so here's something that has a bunch of things below it. Where's my Chrome? Chrome's got lots of stuff. There's Chrome. So all the individual processes, right, are using a certain amount of CPU. The tree CPU use just rolls that all up. So it can be helpful to correlate when there's a lot of individual processes that a program spawns, what the actual impact is. So that's just a fun one to add. System information views. So up at the top, we get these great views that show us what's going on in the system over time. If we look, say, at the memory, this actually, from the time it's running, it begins capturing going back. But it does depend on how wide you make that window. That was something I learned at one point, didn't understand or appreciate until it's like, wow, that's really cool. So even if whatever you're looking for maybe is scrolled off, if your monitor is bigger, you can actually scroll over and it's going to extend the amount of time. You see, it's not scaling as I stretch it. It is just sliding over because it will actually keep that history. So system information views are fun. The find process. So you've probably at some point had a pop-up that you don't know what created that window, right? You have a pop-up and it's like, okay to continue. And you're like, I wasn't doing anything. Why am I getting asked this? So this, you click on it and drag it around, and whatever window you drop it on, it's going to now select that process. So in fact, I found PowerPoint. If we look at the process, we can, I keep doing this, I keep double clicking. We can right click and go to Properties. See if it behaves better than yesterday. I'm just going to use Alt-Enter. Alt-Enter does properties, by the way, if you didn't already know that. So this gives us information about the image. Was it launched by an auto start? It actually doesn't confirm that an auto start created it, but it checks for common auto start locations. So if the process was likely started by the registry or scheduled task or any known auto start location, that's what that's telling you there. In this case, it appears I would have launched it manually. This wasn't started by an auto-started process. Shows me the command line, gives me breakdown. Once you launch into this, it begins tracking the performance information for this process specifically. So you can let this run if you want to get a good look at what a process is doing. Got our friend strings here that does a free strings lookup for us. Who has ever seen this? Sorry, you can't delete that because it's in use by something, right? But it doesn't tell me what it is. It just says, please fix this and then try again. Okay. So, Process Explorer has this feature that is a file handle. So we can find that handle. See what process has that handle open. We're going to get probably a few because I'm running Process Explorer from there. But we see this guy. I want to focus on him. So I clicked on it, and it has already selected that process for me. And in fact, this lower pane popped open. Got to close this. If I did not already have this lower pane open, this lower pane is showing me all the handles for the process. It would have popped this open, and it should have actually, yeah, there it is. It actually highlights the file handle. So from here, we can do a couple things. One, we can actually forcefully close that handle. So there are times where that's appropriate. If there's a process that you can't stop, but it's locking a file that you need to manipulate, you know, show it who's boss, close that handle. But let's see if we can actually find this process and deal with it. There we go. So if you right-click on a process, if it has a visible window, it will play keep away. If it has a visible window, it'll let you bring it to the front. But this case is telling me it doesn't have one. But I can see that this was spawned by PowerShell. It also doesn't have a visible window. But it was spawned by Windows Terminal, which does have a visible window. And we can bring that to the front and find out what application this actually was. Or if it's all hidden and we don't care, we can kill it. So covered all that. A couple more options. So we can, I forgot to uncheck this. So I've got that column over there that says verify signer. That's not a default setting. You can check that box, and what that's going to do is look at the binaries that are running and look to see if they're signed by somebody. So that can be useful when you're investigating a system that just has something weird going on. You want to find out, is there anything sketchy? Go ahead and hit verified signer. Then you can sort by that column and see, are there any binaries that are running that look like a problem? You can mouse over. These are all privileged processes that I can't investigate, but it will tell you, the command line or whatever. Just because it's not signed doesn't mean it's malicious. Just because it's signed doesn't guarantee it's good, but it's some more context for you, right? And in fact, they even have a feature that you can use to submit virus total. So you can ask it, and it gives a little disclaimer about you're going to be sending information to a third party. But you can have virus total. It'll hash the files, send those hashes to virus total, and add a column that says whether or not virus total has flagged any of these files as malicious. You also can replace Task Manager. Oh, look at that, I already had it selected. So Control-Shift-Escape, you may know, is the hotkey to open Task Manager, or you can go to the lock screen, Control-Delete, and launch Task Manager. But you can select this, and it will replace Task Manager. And so now that I've selected that, I can prove it. Control-Shift-Escape. And instead of Task Manager opening, now I've launched Process Explorer. So obviously, if you're running Process Explorer for the first time on a machine, that's not going to be set, but you might want to enable it on your own system. We'll talk more in a second about why we might want to do that or not. I'm going to turn it back off. And then we will jump into Procmon. See, I'm getting ahead. That's all the stuff we were supposed to be talking about on this slide. We just did it. Okay, Procmon. So how I set up Procmon. I launch it, let it run for a few seconds. You're inevitably going to have processes that are doing a lot, reading a lot of registry locations, reading a lot of files. And so the key is to make Procmon, actionable, right? When it's just dumping thousands and millions of lines at you, that doesn't help you understand what's going on. So if you're going to, say, reproduce a scenario, you're going to test something out, open up Procmon, let it capture for a few seconds, and then stop. More or less everything that has happened during that time is probably stuff you're not interested in. So you can immediately start using that to filter out the noisy things that are then going to allow you to try to reproduce something and actually see those events. So I stop it, go to filter and drop filtered events. That makes it so that it doesn't waste extra memory caching all the things that you have now told it to ignore. I scope the activity type, so you can select between registry activity, file system activity, network activity, or process activity. If I'm looking for a change in the registry, then maybe I don't need to catch any network events. I can just uncheck that. Then start doing some exclusions. I'll show you that. Work with exclude operations first. So include limits to only what you include. So I always try to work from an exclude perspective. Just cut out the things I'm not interested in. And then when I get closer, I can include. But I don't want to be overly specific at first. I'll miss things. If I am doing anything where I'm capturing processes launching, so I'm tracking process activity, filter out the thread start, thread exit, and the load image. They're basically useless and redundant unless you have a need for that really specific level of detail. If all you need to know is when a process started and stopped, get rid of those events, clear those events out, and then restart your capture. And then refine the filtering. So once we have started our capture, say that we are tracking a registry change when I run a certain program. If I find when that program started running, I could exclude everything before that event. If I find when that program exited, I can exclude everything after. And now I've just, narrowed down exactly, maybe just the few seconds of activity that I actually need to care about. If you are doing monitors for file activity, you can do exclude operation contains information. That cuts out a whole bunch of noise. And same for registry activity, exclude enum and info. And let's jump into the demo stuff. So catch command lines. I think we may already have managed this. So I mentioned that I ran I installed Wireshark, and I had this running. Let's cut down just a process activity. And first, let's cut out a few processes we don't care about. So we don't care about this process. We don't care about that operation I said. Exclude thread create. 7,000 events, what do we get down to? Got down to 5,000. Exclude thread exit. Down to 3,000. Exclude load image. So there's kind of another kind of filter you can do, the highlight. If you right-click, you can pick this highlight option and pick any of these, or you can hit this highlighter and manually edit the conditions. So at the moment I have a highlight for Wireshark. One of the nice things about highlight is you can use F4 to jump to the next highlight. So that is a good way to find all the actions associated with something without necessarily cutting everything out. So I can see that the last reference to Wireshark was here. Is that really true? I kind of expected there to be a process exit. I must have stopped the capture before we got there. Okay. But let's exclude all events after. Here, exclude all before. So these were the things that happened while Wireshark was running. In fact, just to cut down on it for the moment, I'm just going to include Wireshark. So we ran Wireshark with the /s parameter. Let's take a look at what that did. So we can see that here's the command line that ran. In fact, there's where I ran it with the lowercase s, and it exited. It actually respawns it again. There's where we ran it with the uppercase s, all right. And then after that, we can see that Wireshark actually launched this VC Redist X64. So during the process of that install, it launched another process. We captured that command line. But let's take a look at a registry modification. Let's reset this. So by default, process monitor is going to exclude SysInternals tools, common SysInternals tools like autoruns, Procmon. I'm going to show you something that Process Explorer is going to do, so I want process monitor to catch it. Let's reset. We actually can clear this. I am going to be interested in registry activity. Don't even care about processes right now. So the registry activity, I mentioned that you can use Process Explorer to replace Task Manager. Let's see what that's doing. So I do this, and the box is checked. We know it worked, right? But what actually happened in the background? So it's already happened. I can stop the capture, not erase. Let's start excluding some things that are showing up here. Don't care about that, don't care about that, don't care about that. How many events? Boy, 2,000 events. Or sorry, 2,000, 242. Let's just search for the process containing proc.exe. Oh, did I not add that? There we are. All right, so we can exclude the operation. Instead of directly excluding it, we can make use of the edit filter. It brings this up for me, so I can tweak it a little. So that I want to get rid of info and query if it's a registry. We want to exclude that. And info. We've got 4,000 events. Let's see, we just cut them in half. I'm a little puzzled. Told it not to show file activity. I'm not actually sure why that file activity is there. There we go. We don't care about opening a key. We don't care about closing a key. Let's see if we can drill in and find out what it did to modify it. Creating key, that might be interesting. Enums, don't care. And we can see that it actually set some value here. We can actually look at that by making use of the jump to operator. So if you are selecting a path or a registry path, you can use jump to. It's going to open Explorer directly to that file, or open registry right to that registry key. So we can see that, in fact, what it did is it set a debugger value for Task Manager exe. Effectively, this is considered an image hijack. We have told Windows that when I run Task Manager, run this binary instead. So if you make use of this, just know that your SOC will probably open a ticket to ask, hey, there's some image hijack detected, because that's technically what this is. But that's what happens when you check that box to replace Task Manager. It just says, don't run Task Manager, run Procx instead. Let's see, the activity summaries. So under Tools, there are several different summaries. We can see processes. Well, I filtered it down a lot. That's not very interesting. Let's get rid of that. That include, open it up. There we go. So this is showing me the different processes that are running, the events that it saw happen in Capture. This little timeline here is actually showing me from when Process Explorer was launched, when the activity happened. So because I restart it and kind of limited the capture, it's not that interesting, but normally it shows like a green bar if it's been running the whole time. If it's a process that terminated, it's red. It might start right in the middle and then exit. So I think I kind of, well, I didn't skip it. I mean, this Process Explorer, right, this tree view, showing you a tree view of all the running processes right now. You can see that same view in Procmon for all the processes that have been running. So even if it's a process that just fired and dropped right away, you can find it in that process activity summary. Play with these other tools. This is kind of a fun one. I don't think that we'll get any activity here, maybe. This actually is tracking anytime a single registry path is being touched by two different processes. If you're troubleshooting where something's conflicting or something else is changing a value that you're working on. Just gonna say play with those tools. They're fun. Let's move on. Browser DevTools. So to get into DevTools, hit Control-Shift-I, used to be F12, but I think they've kind of gone away from that. First thing I always do, go to the Network tab, check Preserve Log. Otherwise, every time the page refreshes or you navigate, it resets the log. So I say Preserve Log. Disable Cache is just a checkbox for that. If you go to the settings for the DevTools, there's an option for auto-open DevTools on pop-ups. So if you're working in a window and it actually pops open a second window, and then you go open DevTools there, you will not have captured what that window is initially doing. So if you enable that and you're running DevTools in the first window, when that second window pops, it automatically pops DevTools so that you get a complete picture of what's going on. You can dock it. I like to have it as a full detached window. So let's take a look. If I go to a website, deciding what website I want. First of all, it's open DevTools. I've got Preserve Log and Disable Cache selected. And I want to go to okay. Take a look at what we learned. So going to that page pulled a lot of content. A lot of different pages got referenced. We can select any of those and we can see what information was submitted, the payload. We can see what headers were sent, what the response headers were. We can get a preview of what it is, depending on the kind of content it is. So here we go, preview of that. And let's take a look at this page. So as I'm scrolling through this feature list, I hit an end, and you saw it did a little refresh. Loaded some more. Do that again, it's loading some more. What is going on with that? We can see that it keeps calling this endpoint get. Filter that down. So we can see that it did a post. And what did it post? Posted all this stuff, and notably, I'm going to draw your attention to the pages value. Every time it posted the exact same thing, just changed the pages count. If we look at what that response was, the response is a big JSON string, and that JSON body has a property called hasNextPage, true. So what we can extract out of this is that when it makes a call to get, it just provides that get endpoint. It provides a page number that it wants. It returns some records and includes some information, including whether or not there's another page. So what if we wanted to retrieve all these, right? You've probably worked with vendors or websites where they don't give you an option to export something, right? You have a list of things like technician logins or computers or whatever the information is, and you can scroll through it and it kind of dynamically loads. You can filter whatever, but you can't export that. You can't just copy paste and get all that information. How does DevTools help us? We can make this request a PowerShell request. So all I did was right click, said copy as PowerShell. Back to the clipboard, what did that do? That created some PowerShell commands that are going to set some session variables. So all of the session state that I had in my browser, even if I've gone through 2FA, this is a demonstration of a browser hijack, a session hijack, in fact. So don't ever do this for a 2FA protected thing and then publish something that's got it. This is an anonymous website, no login. But this information is sensitive, just be aware of that. So it will recreate my session cookies, my session state, everything that I had in my browser that I was authenticated and working within that platform, I can now have that context inside of PowerShell. And you can see it work. Copy. Open a fresh PowerShell window. Paste. And it did something. Not particularly useful, but we can see that it actually did do something. So let's turn this into something useful. First of all, I did not open my notes already. First thing I'm going to do to make it useful is take this invoke web request and let's store this in a variable. Because it's not very useful that it just dumped out, right? Okay, we can see that we successfully retrieved that example, which was page 2. We retrieved that body. If we want to look at what it, although we see it's just a big JSON block. So we actually can swap this out. Instead of web request, we can do REST method. And it's going to be much more useful. I'm going to jump ahead and wrap some other stuff around it. So not only are we going to switch to REST method, store my result, but I'm actually going to set something up here. I'm going to create a variable, an array, for my results. I'm going to set a page value to 0. I'm going to start a loop, increase page, so I'm going to start with page 1. Just spit out that I'm pulling that page. I'm going to take this and get the request. So let's update that and wrap it in. We no longer need any of these cookies. Let's grab this and put it at the bottom and combine these together. But hopefully you're following, how I got to this sequence of changes. So this is the request that we just did that worked fine. Instead of doing X, right? I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm just going to call it my result. And down here at the bottom, instead of posting this exact body, I'm going to just take off that 2. We're going to do page. So same request, but now instead of page being a static number, it's a variable. That result, we didn't really look at it, but it has a property called roadmap that has an object called posts, which is all the posts in the roadmap. So if we retrieve those, let's add those to my array of results. And remember, we did see that roadmap had that has next page value. So as long as that's true, let's just do a loop. And my results. There's all the items from their roadmap. 545 records. So they don't have an export. There's no publicly available way for me to just get that list. But taking what DevTools shows us about how to interact with that website, moving into PowerShell, we can begin manipulating that script and repeat. So that has been something I've just really appreciated about using DevTools. I mean, it's always fun looking at the requests, but when I can use this to extract information, I guarantee your coworkers will believe that you are a wizard when you are able to deliver this report. They will say, hey, I need to get this data from this website, and you come back in 20 minutes like, yeah, got it, boom. Their minds will blow. I'm going to skip Wireshark for time and talk about some other tools and then open up for some more Q&A. So regular expressions. I use an example of regular expressions. A lot of times people are intimidated by regular expressions. They think they can't do regular expressions, right? My name is Darren, D-A-R-R-E-N. That is a regular expression for the name Darren, D-A-R-R-E-N. Regular expressions aren't hard. There's more advanced things, for sure. But any application that supports regular expressions, there are some different flavors and stuff, but it unlocks a lot in terms of what you can do to search. So a great regular expression thing is the fact that you can use a pipe to separate 2 different regular expressions. So if I do a regular expression search for this, pipe, that, I am going to search for this or that. So imagine, in Notepad or in any tool where they let you do a search, right? You're usually just searching for one word at a time, but if it supports regular expressions, you could actually say, I want to search for a bunch of different words at once. So a lot of different applications will support regex under the hood, so knowing about how to use regex in your searches unlocks a lot of power for you. So definitely it's worth doing. I made this a link. Somebody suggested regex 101. Don't know if it'll show it. I haven't played with that much, but they said that you can paste a regular expression there, and it breaks down the elements of it and shows you how it works. So it's a great learning reference. I also checked my bookmarks. I had a few regular expressions websites that I've used, but I went ahead and embedded that in the deck. Looked like a good introductory place. Definitely worth your while to learn something about regex. I mean, it's been around for a long time. I think it's going to remain around because it is a standard pattern matching language. So it doesn't matter whether you're using PowerShell, Python, Visual Studio Code, whatever, regular expression support is just all over the place. MySQL supports regular expressions for doing searches. You can do regex-like something. I mean, it's all over the place. Whoami/all. So a lot of times I say a lot of times, I don't know. We run whoami as technicians. We run whoami to see who we are. Because maybe we're taking over for a user, or we want to know if we're elevated, or we want to confirm that we successfully logged in, or what have you. If you add that /all parameter on there, it actually dumps out a lot more info. It will tell you the user's SID, tells you what groups they're in, tells you what security privileges they have. And so I just suggest getting in the habit of doing it, because otherwise you run whoami and then you come back with, well, am I elevated or am I not? So you can check and see if you're a member of the administrators group. So you can do whoami/groups. If you just ran whoami/all, you just have all that information immediately. Where.exe will find where a program is in the path. And I'm qualifying that as where.exe because where is aliased inside of PowerShell. So if I type where ping.exe inside of PowerShell, it won't work. If I can do that fine in command prompt, but in PowerShell, where means something else. So where.exe, ping.exe, it's going to say, oh, that's C Windows System 32. It's looking for, it's not a partial match, it's looking for the binary. So if I type ping.exe and it runs, that's great. Where is it running from? If I want to know where that ping came from, I can do where.exe space ping.exe. And the relevance of that is if you run something and something unexpected happens, like a different version of the application, you were expecting one thing to happen and something else happened, figuring out which binary actually ran where.exe. Netstat-ANO. So I imagine you guys probably are pretty familiar with AN, show all connections, and skip those reverse DNS lookups. Again, they're slow, we want to be fast. And a lot of times I'll say we're running netstat because we're interested in the connection, the source and destination, but a lot of times we're looking for listening ports, right? We want to know what ports are being listened on or something, because that's just a common scenario that we have to troubleshoot. When you add that O on there, it will add the owning process ID to the end. So you can then pipe that through find string and say, find colon 8888, and it's going to return the row that says listening on 8888. And then it's going to give you the process ID. So you know exactly which process is listening on that port, not just that the port is in use. You may not have encountered that. You might see the port and go, okay, well, I know what process is probably using it, and go stop that process and see if that fixes it. But the O shows you who actually owns it. SysInternals, we touched on a few tools, but they have lots of great ones. Some of the other ones that I make use of are auto runs, finding out which applications are configured to automatically run and how they're configured. It searches everywhere, so it's great. Ways that you may not have even known you can trigger something to run automatically. It will search, so it is useful a lot of times for kind of malware, but it comes in. PsExec and PsTools, modern RMM, it's not as necessary. I mean, if you already have RMM agents, but PsExec is an amazingly powerful tool. If you're ever working in an environment where you don't already have your full tool suite, you're on one application, you need to jump to another computer and run something, you can use PS remoting now that that's kind of a thing. PsExec predates all that, right? Before there was PS remoting, you could use PsExec to get a command prompt on another system. Fair warning, it has been used by many malicious actors, and so don't be surprised, again, if your SOC is complaining about why you're using this tool, but it is definitely a good one to have some experience with. Play with it. And all the other PS tools. Again, the SysInternals website has it all documented. If you are a Linux user, you've probably used whois. When I am doing investigations into a mail server, I'll do an NS lookup, look at the MX, but a lot of times one of the things I'm looking for is who owns this domain, who the registrar is. So whois lets you do a whois lookup on a domain from the command line instead of having to go to your browser and type whois and get some website that has some banner ads and wants to show you the information. Just a command line whois, boom. Nursoft. If you've never used any Nursoft tools, prepare to have your mind blown. Seriously, it is a crazy set of tools that this guy has produced on par with SysInternals. Some of my favorites are Browser History View. You can use it to retrieve browser history for all users, for all browsers, including Opera, SeaMonkey, whatever. So many that I've never heard of. The tool supports. It's still being updated and supported to this day. So for instance, I have a script that will download Browser History View and pull the browsing history from all the browsers for all the users for the last N number of days, zip that up and then email it to the technician because sometimes management asks us to look into those things, right? Blue screen view helps if a machine has been experiencing blue screens, you can get some nice information at your fingertips. Log on, log off, and startup shutdown reports. It's extracting information that exists in the event logs. But trying to find that information in the event logs is a nightmare. So that is just a super great tool. I frequently use it when I get the call of, my machine rebooted this morning, why? Or my machine rebooted 3 days ago, why? And because it shows you the time it started, the time it shut down, and the reason. Was it because of a patch? Was it because a user initiated? Was it due to, it was asleep and then it woke up later? Why did it shut down and wake up or stop and start? And the same for user log on, log off, just being able to verify when a user was active on a system, stuff like that. So great tools. Fiddler Classic is a tool that it brings you the power of DevTools to any application, right? DevTools is the browser showing you what's going on with HTTP and HTTPS traffic. Fiddler Classic is a free tool that will listen in on all HTTP and HTTPS traffic on your machine, HTTP traffic, and you can set it up to do man in the middle, and it can decode HTTPS. And it looks like DevTools. It just shows you all the URLs that are being accessed, what process is doing it. You can click on that URL, and it shows you all the headers that were submitted, all the response data that came, lots of different ways to view it. Super fun and powerful when you're working with HTTP and HTTPS traffic that's not in a browser. So DevTools is great, but if you're actually troubleshooting an application to see what it's doing at HTTP and HTTPS levels, Fiddler Classic. Less MSI, back to the installers. So Less MSI, if you've ever used Orca to try to look inside of an MSI to see what properties are supported, you know how much of a nightmare and pain it is to use and install Orca. Less MSI is just a simple installer that has a Explorer integration. So you can right-click on an MSI, say Explore MSI, it pops open a window, lets you see the files that are in the MSI, lets you see the tables, including the properties table, where any property that is all uppercase is a property you can pass and override at the command line. So when you're, again, working on those silent installs, you need to know which properties you can support to maybe control how the application works. So Redshot is a tool to take a snapshot of the registry, at a later time, take another snapshot and compare the changes. I showed you how Process Monitor can catch changes, but the key is that you'd have to be running it while the change happens. Redshot would let you just take a snapshot, do a thing, and then take a snapshot and compare. So a lot of interesting opportunities that get opened up there. And WizTree, if you're familiar with tree size or Winderstat, it's like that, but make 5 to 15 times faster. No joke. It is super fast. You will, if you've been using where.exe or tree size, you will not believe that it is real, but it is and great. So highly recommend that tool. And where did I put it? I thought I made a list of other user submitted things. I wanted to share, so in the Q&A time, how much time do I have? We have like 4 minutes, right? So in the Q&A, people brought up some of their favorite tools. I'm not gonna spend that 4 minutes looking for that. Let's open it up. If anyone has any questions or comments. And I can't see you, so. Actually, where is the goose already? Okay. Is anyone raising their hand? Apologize. Okay, well, let me see if I can find those suggestions from yesterday. I think what it was last night I had this vision of going through and adding a slide that did it, and I didn't wake up and do it. So I think I sent it to myself.
If you did want to check it out, the ping info view is another Nearsoft tool.
Oh, okay. I don't have it there. Check different Slack. And if I don't find it right here, then I don't remember where I made a list because Regex 101. Oh, we were talking about IP scanners. Angry IP scanner and Nmap, ZenMap, and somebody else just brought one to me today as well. Another IP scanner that they found good. The question was, what's your favorite IP scanner tool? My answer was actually, we have standardized on Avik at all clients, and so I let Avik handle that lifting. But when you're in a new environment and you need a standalone scanning tool, there was that. Everything, if you're not familiar with Everything, it is a great tool. You have to install and let it scan, but it just allows you to very quickly search through files. So it is a much faster, I told you how to use DIR, but Everything is way faster to actually find, assuming you have it installed. The DIR thing works on a random server in Backstage, but on your own computer, Everything is a great way to go. And Windows Power Toys. That was a suggestion. Check those out, play with them. I can't comment on any specific Power Toys, but that was feedback from the audience of check out Windows Power Toys, some fun stuff there. That's right, path ping. So as I recall, path ping first does a trace route and then it pings, right? But I feel like it breaks if there's any missed hops in it. Am I correct? Right, but if you have a situation where, like, say the third hop times out, I don't think path ping works for that. It works when it's a complete trace route. Definitely check out path ping. It is actually a built-in utility. It's been in Windows forever. But I feel like it doesn't work for me often enough that it's not in my toolkit. Which is where I get into the do the trace route and then start all the individual pings habit. Because you can do that even if the trace route is incomplete. So there's like 1 minute to go. We can call it, or if anyone else has any questions. I love Robocopy. Yeah, no, Robocopy is awesome. I mean, obviously, it's a specific tool for a specific purpose. Well, Robocopy can do a lot of really, really cool things. It can be used to enumerate files because you can use the system backup privilege. You can actually use Robocopy to enumerate into folders that you don't have access to. There's other ways around that, but Robocopy is a built-in utility. Let's say that you're trying to enumerate the files below a user profile share where the users have exclusive ownership of that folder. It doesn't matter if you're system. You still can't run a DIR into that command. The system backup privilege lets you get past that, and robocopy unlocks that for you. So you can run robocopy in the list mode to say, tell me what you would copy, and you now can list all the files into folders. No, love robocopy. That is a great system, great.